They called me the family letdown. Never outright, not often, anyway, but it echoed in the hushed conversations when I left the room, flickered in the judgmental side eyes, and lingered in the silence that followed my footsteps. I'm Amanda Mitchell, and up until last week, I was the outlier in a lineage obsessed with Ivy League diplomas, executive titles, and wine-fueled power lunches at country clubs. The day everything shifted started like any other Thanksgiving at the Mitchell estate. I pulled my beat-up Honda Civic into the circular driveway, parking it between James's polished Tesla and Catherine's glistening Range Rover. The symbolism wasn't lost on me, it never was. I glanced in the rearview mirror, straightening my plain black sweater, no couture logos, no dazzling diamonds, just me, holding a homemade pie and carrying 5 years of silence, sacrifice, and strategy. Voices filtered through the double doors as I climbed the marble steps, a familiar chorus of curated accomplishments. Catherine made partner at Goldman. James secured Series C funding. Michael's merger just hit Forbes. I inhaled deeply and stepped inside. The foyer hadn't changed, gleaming chandelier overhead, perfectly staged family photos lining the walls, none of which featured me. Amanda, my mother's voice rang out from the kitchen, more like a public service announcement than a greeting. You're late. Traffic, I offered casually, though in truth, I'd just walked out of a boardroom where a government contract worth 9 figures had been signed, but that wasn't for today. In the kitchen, Mom stood at the helm like a general preparing for war. Her designer suit was spotless, her posture a blueprint for judgment. She barely looked at my pie. Oh, dessert, lovely, just add it to the others. The others being overpriced pastries from a bakery with a 6-month waitlist. I placed my pie silently among them, knowing full well it'd never see the dining table. Catherine entered, swirling wine in her glass. Still doing that, what is it again, tech something? I smiled politely. Something like that. Let them imagine I troubleshoot printers in a cubicle. Let them remain clueless a little longer. I had no intention of spoiling the finale before the curtain call. Well, it's good to stay busy, she said in that clipped, patronizing tone. Did I mention I'm the youngest senior partner at the firm? You did, congratulations. Catherine had always chased prestige like a blood sport, and she needed everyone to watch her win. James strolled in next, radiating Silicon Valley smugness. Hey, Amanda, he said, eyeing my clothes, guessing Target had a clearance? Walmart, 2 for 1. He snorted, clueless. If only he knew the empire I'd built while wearing $19 jeans and eating ramen. Dad, of course, was tucked away in his study, the family's inner sanctum of judgment and legacy preservation. He looked up as I entered. Amanda, he said, slow and cool. Good of you to remember your roots. I gave a neutral nod, letting his assumption hang. How would I explain I now had more power in my inbox than his firm had seen in 30 years, that I'd built a tech company valued at over $4 billion, all while they looked the other way? The dining room was a shrine to ambition. Degrees, plaques, magazine spreads, Catherine's law school accolades, James's tech weekly interview, Mom shaking hands at charity balls. No trace of me, deliberate, I'm sure. We sat down to eat, and the usual pageant began. Updates, bragging, one-upmanship. Catherine's firm just closed the Anderson account. Mom beamed. $3 billion in assets. James's app hit the App Store's top 10, Dad added, puffed with pride. Then came the lull, the part where they skipped over me. But not this time. Aunt Sarah, always the instigator, raised her glass and turned to me. And you, Amanda, still dabbling in whatever it is you do? Forks paused midair, heads turned, curious, condescending. Oh, you know, I replied smoothly, keeping busy. She could have done something big, Aunt Sarah whispered to Mom, loudly. Had real potential, if only she'd followed the plan. I took a sip of water, hiding my grin. They didn't know Forbes was going live at 8 a.m. tomorrow. That my dabbling was in AI quantum systems now contracted by the U.S. Defense Department. That the company they thought was a side hustle was negotiating buyout offers north of $6 billion. Remember when she turned down Harvard Business? Uncle Robert added with a chuckle. Could have had a real career. At least she's independent, Mom offered, lukewarm praise at best. Even if her lifestyle's humble. Dad sighed. Not everyone's built to lead, some just work. I sliced into the turkey, calm and quiet. By morning, everything they thought they knew would implode. The Forbes article was already scheduled, the photo shoot already done. My name, Amanda Mitchell, on the list of top tech founders under 30, front and center. Q1 market's gonna be wild, James said, shifting topics. My company's positioned to dominate. Let them have their moment. Let them believe I was still the underdog, the black sheep. One final time. Catherine turned toward me again, her voice sweet with self-importance. You know, Amanda, Mark from my firm is hiring, entry-level, but steady work. Might be a good restart for you. I smiled, recalling the message from Mark himself, requesting an introduction to my CTO. Appreciate that, I said. I'll consider it. The rest of the night played out like a well-rehearsed act. Smug smiles, subtle jabs, casual dismissals. They didn't know the tech world had already crowned its next queen. And she was sitting quietly at their table, biding her time. As dessert, store-bought only, of course, was served. Dad lifted his glass. To the Mitchell legacy, he toasted. To ambition, achievement, and excellence. I raised my glass too, and smiled. Because in less than 12 hours, the real legacy would finally be revealed. And it had my name on it. They clinked their glasses. I kept mine still. In a few hours, they'd finally understand what true achievement looked like, what real ambition could build when no one was watching. Their version of excellence was polished on the surface but shallow underneath. Mine had depth and power. Maybe next year will be Amanda's year, Aunt Sarah offered with a smile that carried more pity than hope. I caught my reflection in the polished silver tray, calm, steady, assured. Maybe it will, I said softly, past the turkey. 5 years ago, I was in a cramped studio apartment, surrounded by empty takeout containers and lines of code streaming across 3 monitors. It didn't look like the birthplace of a revolution, but it was. No Harvard degree, no Wall Street job, just an idea that wouldn't let go and a refusal to accept their definition of success. My laptop pinged, another email from Mom. James is hosting a tech mixer. Great place to meet someone who can help you get a real job. Wear something nice. I clicked it shut and returned to the algorithm pulsing across my screen. I was on the verge of a breakthrough, a solution to a quantum computing problem that had baffled experts for years. That IT job, they laughed about, I wasn't answering phones. I was leading a micro-team inside a forgotten research division, quietly developing the next generation of quantum systems. While Catherine racked up legal accolades and James chased headlines, I was filing patents under stealth entities and building something that would one day outscale them all. Your code is genius, Marcus said one night, staring at the screen. He was the first person I hired. Why don't you tell your family what you're building? I remembered my father's voice when I turned down Harvard. You're walking away from greatness, Amanda. That's not what Mitchells do. They wouldn't get it, I said. Not yet. The first major breakthrough came at 3:12 a.m. While my family slept in silk sheets and took their success for granted, I had solved a quantum bottleneck scientists had been wrestling with for decades. By dawn, I was in a boardroom, presenting it to stunned venture capitalists. "This is paradigm shifting," one whispered, sliding a term sheet toward me. "You can name your number." But I didn't want fanfare. I took only what I needed, kept the cap table clean, and quietly began assembling the sharpest team in the field. We operated in an unmarked building miles from Silicon Valley's echo chamber. No press, no panels, no parties, just focus. While my family clinked champagne flutes at Catherine's promotions and James's seed rounds, I was building the infrastructure of the future, one that would power defense systems, data networks, and technologies they couldn't yet imagine. Still at that help desk, James would chuckle during dinners. He had no idea I'd acquired two of his competitors through proxies. "You could always go back to school," Mom would say sweetly, while I negotiated a $500 million government contract behind NDA. Then came the Pentagon. Our technology had advanced so rapidly, it drew the attention of defense officials. Suddenly I was in top-secret meetings, making decisions that would shape national security for the next decade. "Sorry I missed your gala, Mom," I'd say, flipping through classified documents. "Work's been a little busy." "Oh honey," she'd reply, "answering phones can be so demanding." When my CFO walked into my office one Tuesday morning and laid down the valuation report, I didn't flinch. "We're at $4.2 billion, she said. My phone buzzed, new family group message. Catherine just bought a summer home in Nantucket. The timing was poetic. Forbes called on a Wednesday. "We'd like to feature you in 30 Under 30, the reporter said. "We've verified your patents, funding rounds, government partnerships, and honestly, the industry's calling you a ghost genius." I paused. I knew what saying yes would mean. No more hiding, no more quiet building, no more letting them believe I was the family failure. "We're going live Thanksgiving morning," she said. 6 a.m. Eastern. That night, over another family dinner, my father proudly announced James's $10 million raise. My last contract had added 50 times that to my balance sheet. "Maybe Amanda could invest," Uncle Robert joked, "if she's got anything left from her little job." I excused myself to take a call. It was the Department of Defense, again. Outside the dining room window, I watched them toast each other, high on their illusions of success. They had no idea what was coming. The Forbes photo shoot felt surreal. "You really kept this from your entire family?" the photographer asked, adjusting his lens. I nodded. "They'll find out soon enough." The day before Thanksgiving, my assistant stepped into my office, the top floor of a skyscraper I owned. "Your mother called," she said. "She asked if you could please try to be on time this year." I looked out the window at a city powered by systems my company had helped create. "Tell her I'll be there." That night, I parked my Civic outside my modest home, not the penthouse, not the estate, just the quiet place I still loved. A text from Catherine lit up my screen. "Wear something nice. Mom invited some important people." I smiled and set the phone down. The Forbes article was scheduled. The press team was ready. Everything was in motion. Tomorrow, the world would know. 6 a.m., Thanksgiving Day. My phone buzzed. Forbes was live. The hidden genius of quantum, how Amanda Mitchell built a $4.2 empire in silence. I sipped coffee as my notifications exploded. James called at 6:13. I let it ring. Catherine texted 3 times. Then Mom, then Dad, then Aunt Sarah. One by one, their messages rolled in. "Amanda? What is this? $4.2 billion? I left the phone on silent. I had a family dinner to attend, the quantum computing revolutionary no one saw coming. Wall Street Journal, Mitchell Innovations, the stealth company reshaping global technology. Bloomberg. Meet Amanda Mitchell, the secretive genius behind modern quantum computing. My PR director called that morning. It's chaos. Every major network wants you live. The Pentagon issued a statement. If your company were public, your stock would be skyrocketing. I smiled faintly. Let's focus on Thanksgiving dinner first. When I arrived at my parents' house at 2 p.m., the energy had shifted. Security guards, hired after reporters swarmed the property, stood stiffly at the gate. My old Honda confused them, until one checked the list. "Miss Mitchell," he said, straightening, "apologies, we didn't, recognize the car." The driveway was a showroom of luxury, but now, my Civic wasn't modest, it was deliberate. The door flew open before I knocked. Mom stood there, immaculate as ever, but her hands were trembling. "Amanda," she whispered, as if seeing me clearly for the first time. "Why didn't you tell us?" I stepped past her into the marble foyer. The usual festive noise was gone. It had been replaced by stunned, suffocating silence. The entire family was already there, gathered not for the meal, but for me. Dad emerged from his study, tablet in hand. The Forbes article glowed on the screen. He opened his mouth, closed it, then finally managed. 4.2 billion. Give or take, I said. Markets volatile. Catherine sat on the staircase, her crisp suit suddenly looking like armor cracked under pressure. Her phone buzzed relentlessly, no doubt partners scrambling to process what her underachieving sister had built. James leaned against the fireplace, knuckles white around a whiskey glass. The article had named my firm's quiet acquisition of 3 of his competitors. He'd been pitching my company for months, never knowing I owned it. "But, you drive a Honda," Aunt Sarah said, like it was the final straw. "It's fuel efficient," I said, heading to the kitchen, pie in hand. No one mocked it this time. Mom followed, wringing her hands. "All these years, why didn't you say something?" I placed the pie among the others. "Would it have mattered?" I asked. "When I turned down Harvard, you'd already written the ending. When I took that job, you assumed I'd settled. You never asked, you just decided." "But the Pentagon, Forbes, Quantum," her voice cracked. "We're your family." "Yes," I said gently, "and family is supposed to believe in you, even before the headlines." The dining room felt surreal. Every traditional marker of success, Catherine's partnerships, James's startups, Dad's boardroom victories, suddenly looked like decorative trophies in a museum no one visited anymore. Uncle Robert cleared his throat. "Well, this is unexpected." "Is it?" I asked, scanning the room. "Or did you just never expect it from me?" Dad stood for the toast, but the words he always used, achievement, ambition, excellence, caught in his throat. I raised my water glass. "To quiet revolutions," I said. "To building instead of boasting. To the kind of success that doesn't need a spotlight." Mom fainted. Actually fainted when someone's phone buzzed with another headline. Mitchell Innovations receives $10 billion defense buyout offer. As relatives rushed to revive her, I calmly began slicing my turkey. "Cranberry sauce?" I asked James, who hadn't blinked since the Forbes alert. You bought CompTC last month," he stammered. "Among others," I said. "Your pitch was close, just not quite what we needed." Catherine found her voice. "Mark, my partner, he's been trying to reach you all day." "I know," I replied. "We're redoing his firm's digital infrastructure. The contract's larger than your entire annual revenue." Dad returned, helping Mom to her seat. For the first time in my life, he looked unsure, small. "Why now?" he asked. "Why today?" I glanced at the family portraits surrounding us, none of which included me, at the degrees and magazine covers framed on the walls, at the empty spaces where my story had never been told. "Because today isn't about me," I said. "It's about perspective. About truth. About reminding you that success doesn't always look how you expect it to. Aunt Sarah dabbed her eyes. We were horrible to you. No, I corrected, you were blind. There's a difference. My phone buzzed again. The White House. National security implications. Urgent request for a briefing. I declined. Today was for family. I have a confession, I said, turning to my mother. That tech support job? I founded it. That modest office? One of 30 locations. That simple life? A strategic choice. Mom's hand trembled as she reached for her glass. All those years you missed our holidays. I was in secure meetings, Mom. Signing deals in Tokyo. Building technology that will save lives. The silence now felt sacred, truth-laden, transformative. James, still reeling, whispered, what happens now? I smiled, genuinely. Now, we eat, we talk. And maybe, we start seeing each other differently. Dad stood again, this time with no toast, no script. Amanda, he began. I know, I said softly, pass the turkey. As plates were filled and forks finally lifted, the air in the room changed. The disappointment had become the revelation. The quiet girl, the unstoppable force. The overlooked one, the one they couldn't stop looking at now. Then, one final buzz. Mitchell Innovations announces breakthrough in AI-driven cancer detection. I smiled, reaching for the mashed potatoes. Anyone want to hear what I actually do for a living? And for the first time in my life, they truly listened.